Tack så mycket. Jag kör på engelska så utländska investerare också kan hänga med om vi delar den. So thanks for having us here on this digital sending. I'm Dorte, I'm the founder of Pila Pharma, and I'm also the CEO. And I'm here to present a short story about our project. A new diabetes pill is the essence of what we aim at developing. And can I have the next slide, please? So yesterday I had the pleasure to also pitch for Danish investors in the similar organization just in Denmark. And in Denmark, of course, there is a big pride over a very big pharmaceutical company called Novo Nordisk that has also here during the last year had a tremendous success with a compound they have developed for diabetes and then also shown has an effect on obesity. And I had the pleasure myself to work at Novo Nordisk 25 years back. I started there as a PhD student, and by coincidence I discovered this potential new mechanism of action where I dosed in some rats that were prone to be diabetic, have high blood glucose. I gave them a shot of capsaicin. It's the hot ingredient in chili. We had read that that could have some beneficial effects on insulin sensitivity, but what we saw in this study was that we had a tremendous effect on the blood glucose level. As you see, the lower curve is black with the black fold dots is the curve from the rats that got the chili component. And that made me think a lot and read a lot of literature within diabetes and also pain, because this concept has been shown to have an effect in pain. And I came up with a theory that, if I can have the next slide, please, that this is actually an inflammation regulation effect that we saw. As you see here, this is a cover from a magazine that I've read when I was at Novo Nordisk. You can see Novo Nordisk Library. And this is an illustration that should try to illustrate how sensory nerves, so those nerves that sense pain, they end bluntly out in the periphery in the whole body, and they are kind of, attracting signals that can signal if there is a pain or inflammatory action ongoing. And on these nerves, there is this receptor TRPV1 that we know that this active ingredient from chili binds to. Can you have the next slide, please? So I'm also a veterinarian by training, so that's why I usually use a dog for showing. So this is a schematic drawing of how these sensory nerves that go out into the periphery, in the skin, in the gut, in the whole body, heart, lungs, liver, whatever, are all innervated by these sensory afferent nerves, and they can send signals up to the brain about the state of damage or threat. And it can also shed out some neuropeptides that can promote inflammation. Next slide, please. And after thinking a lot about that, I came up with this hypothesis that maybe this could be the missing link in between obesity that leads to diabetes and other complications or other diseases. So I thought, well, if these nerves are expressed in the whole body, they might be able to affect the status of all organs in the body and not just one organ. So having a compound that could do more than just regulating glucose by having an effect on pancreas and insulin secretion would be really, really good, because patients or persons who have or develop diabetes, or first obesity and then diabetes and maybe other things, they usually have a lot of problems with organ less functionality. So I thought this might be a good principle if it worked. And next slide, please. And this led to me filing a patent on the mechanism, that is the left one, and Pila owns that now. But also when I was at Novo, I actually also had the possibility to work on the semaglutide project that is so popular and such a big success for Novo right now. And I did work with these mechanisms and also insulins. And in that comparison, I felt that if I was right about this new mechanism of action, it could actually become a really big thing, because it would be hopefully with good efficacy on many things. It should have a good safety, because otherwise you don't develop something for diabetes without a good safety. It should be an oral tablet, so an easy thing, more easy than injectables, for the pain and problematics of keeping injectables in the fridge and so on. And now we also hear a lot about plastic waste from these syringes. And then I think we can develop something that is price competitive, so it could get out to a lot of people. So availability was a big driver for me, and still is. Next slide, please. So in 2008, Novo Nordisk decided to abandon all the tablet projects, and I was able to buy out my patent application. And on my own expense, I had my first ever patent issued in the US to treat obesity. It's a use patent, so it means it's the mechanism of action. We didn't actually have a compound. Next slide, please. So with this patent, I assembled some smart people that I knew from my time at Novo Nordisk, most of them. And for instance, Caroline Deacon and Jens Holst have been, and Bo Aren have been very much involved in the development of GLP-1 analogs and also compounds that are like in that area. And Jens Holst, of course, is the inventor of GLP-1 analogs that are so successful now. And on their advice in 2013, they said I should go for a molecule that had already been tested in the clinic. And so we did, with the help of Almi Invest. We got some money in. And next slide, please. Okay, I need you to click down all of these. So in 2014, I started Pila in Malmö. I had moved to Sweden. In 2016, as I said, with Almi's investment, we could test some different clinical compounds, and we in-licensed a molecule in 16, and in 20 we actually bought it out completely. We did 2 clinical studies ourselves in diabetes. The molecule had previously been tested in 6 clinical trials, so altogether we've been in 300 patients now, or in 300 people with a very good safety profile. And we could also demonstrate that we had a good effect on insulin release, which is of course the precursor for regulating blood glucose. We had a very good safety, as I said, and I'll get back to that, but we also had a very good effect on a heart failure marker. In 2021, we listed at Nasdaq. Not the best time in the market, but nevertheless, we got the money to take us to the next step. We should go through 3 months toxicology studies to get to longer clinical trials. We also worked on looking at different ways to protect our molecule, which is also on the season side. And in 2022, we got an Orphan Drug Designation for a painful indication where we believe that our molecule also could work. Next slide, please. So our lead compound is a TRPV1 antagonist, it's called. It was developed by Bayer, and this is a really unique molecule. Chemically, it's relatively easy to synthesize, and it's super, super stable. So we've had more than 10 years of API, so active pharmaceutical ingredients that we have used to make new tablets, and the tablets that you see here have also a shelf life, meaning documented stability for 5 years up to 25 degrees. So that is really unique. In terms of what it can do to man, well, it's safe as far as we know. Actually in preclinical, so in dogs and rats, we've seen a very good safety profile, actually no side effects at all. And that is now what can permit us to go on to 3 months clinical trial. Until now, we've seen good safety in man up to 1 month's duration. In 300 persons have been subjected to our molecule, and we haven't really seen anything that is of real concern. We have a different type of side effect profile than other molecules in this area, for instance, the GLP-1. So it's more like the sensory afferent thing. So you can get a little bit like when you're at the dentist and can get some feeling on the lips and the tongue. And there's also been a little slight effect on temperature, actually less in people with diabetes than in healthy volunteers, but very modest, and it goes away quite fast. And yes, thank you. So with this molecule, we have 3 projects defined, and we think we can actually use it for more, given that it might have an effect on many organs and many diseases. Right now, we are focusing on the blue line, the diabetes project, where we also have already demonstrated that there might be an effect on heart failure, so a condition that actually shortens your life if not treated. And we hope to demonstrate an effect on body weight reduction. The orange one is right now on hold. We haven't funding for that at the moment. We hope to do that later. And the green one is a preclinical collaboration with a university group in Uppsala on also cardiovascular disease. Next slide, please. So why work on diabetes projects? Well, I think it's known for many that this is actually a pandemic disease, and it has been for quite some time. When I started in 1999, there were 150 million worldwide, and now we are about 600 million. So quadrupling, 4 times as many in 25 years. That's quite something. The next slide, please. And if you look at the connection to obesity that is so trending at this moment, this is a slide that my colleague Gustav has found, and it is from IQVIA, and they have here listed the expectation for number of people in each country by the year 2035. And as you can see, the US is on top of that list, and the expectation is that there will be more than half of the population that are considered obese. And since obesity does lead to type 2 diabetes and a number of other conditions that are both problematic for the individual patient, but also has a big cost for the society, there is, of course, a need or a recognized need for treatment of this. Next slide, please. If we look at the diabetes market, this is a slide made by Gustav, my colleague. Right now, it is kind of blue ocean. It's an even bigger market than diabetes. Some estimate it to be 100 billion in 2030, and some estimate it to a little bit less. But I think it will be massive. I think it will actually be even more because it's 10 out of 10 obese, 10% will become diabetic. So if we have about 600 million diabetics, you can maybe multiply that by 10 to get the real estimate. But this is a market that is just booming right now. Everybody wants to get into it. And we hope that if we can demonstrate an effect of our molecule on obesity, then there will be an extra market to address for us. Next slide, please. So since last summer, when some really convincing data were presented, there have been a number of deals. This is just the last 2 quarters that also Gustav has summarized. And it's big tickets for projects that have something meaningful to contribute with in terms of regulating blood glucose. Next slide. So the mega trend is obesity treatment at the moment, but the trend in the mega trend, as Gustav says, is that within this area now, we see that companies are looking for drugs that can improve the cardiac health of the people. So with our data in this heart failure biomarker that was lowered, we hope that maybe if we can reproduce that, we'll also have maybe even a third market to address. Next slide. So why invest in Pila Pharma? Well, we have here another graph. If you can click, please. This is a pull out from a monitor where you can follow different shares, and it was from last week. And you can see, I think we are the blue line hasn't performed super well, but it's actually gone up the last day, so we're happy about that. But if you look at the purple and the yellow line, these are Zealand Pharma and also Gubra, which are 2 Danish companies that have shown now activity in the obesity space. You can see that they get this steep curve upwards when they when investors believe that they might be players in the obesity space. And I have called this a zebra effect. So Zealand, Gubra, a zebra effect. And I hope that this is what we are going towards here with our next study in next phase 2A study, where we can hopefully start beginning to look for signals in obesity besides safety. So click, please. So if you want to go for the zebra effect, which you should consider to invest in Pila. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorte, for that presentation. Now I have some questions. The GLP-1 analogs from Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, as you've mentioned, they've taken the world by storm, and this has increased interest in medicines for obesity and diabetes type 2. How has this affected Pila Pharma and your projections for the future?
Well, as I mentioned before, until last summer, when this area of obesity treatments kind of boomed, we have been looking primarily at the effect on diabetes. This has been the traditional way to develop obesity drugs, or diabetes drugs with an effect on obesity also. But now that we see such a huge effect and interest in from all companies, we see that first of all, there will be, if we can demonstrate an effect on obesity, we will have many potential partners. And we observe that by when we've been to some partner meetings recently, we actually do get some more attention. So we can feel that there is more interest. We are also contacted by, there's more interest and so from being a little bit on the outside of the interest space before, like 4 or 5 years ago, it's maybe more cancer products that were in interest. It's definitely metabolic products, like, so we are kind of spotting in the center of the interest space right now. But of course, like with anything else in pharma, you need to demonstrate effect before you can actually. But this is what we hope to do within the next year, the first signs in this area.
Yeah. And you mentioned a few deals within the area.
Yeah.
Have you seen any patterns in what buyers are looking for?
So those molecules that have shown really good effect are of this drug class called GLP-1 analogs. And they are injectables. So what we've seen is that there is an interest for other GLP-1 analogs. I mean, for companies who don't have their own, for instance, they are interested in buying them. We also see that there has been an interest in developing or buying small molecule GLP-1 analogs. So if you can put it into a small tablet and get the same effect, that would be great. As I said before, tablets or syringes, I mean, I think most people would select tablets, and also if you want to address a mass market, it's tablets. The next thing we have seen is that they start combining GLP-1 analogs with other mechanisms of actions. And so that's where we also maybe could come into the plate of interest. Maybe we could be combined with a GLP-1 analog to improve the efficacy or reduce safety or both. And the third thing we've heard is if you use GLP-1 analogs to get a really tremendous effect on body weight, to get down to normal weight maybe, then you may not need this expensive drug anymore. But if you don't get some help, you will actually start increasing your body weight again. So something that can help keeping down or maintaining body weight. We don't have real data for that, but I would expect that this is something we could see from our molecule, but we'll see in the future. So there are different ways where we could fit in, either standalone or as add-on to something else.
Yeah. And what you said about patients gaining weight after they stop treatment, that's something that Novo Nordisk has said themselves. So that's known for the market.
Exactly. And then there are some, I mean, this is what happened last year is really like, I mean, they broke the code of obesity treatment, right? I mean, as I said, I worked on these molecules 20 years back. We didn't know that they worked on that they could affect body weight in mice and rats, at least. And so it's no surprise, but that it has this big effect. And then if you combine with different modes of action, so 2 different modes of action, you could get what we saw last summer was a decrease of 30% of your body weight within a year. That's actually almost unhealthy, but I mean, if you're really, really obese, it might be good. But then, but some of these products also have some, I mean, it's really good, but then you started looking at what actually happens. So you lose 30% body weight, but some of that body weight is actually muscles. And that's not so good, because you need muscles for maintaining good health. So what we also hear is that some of these bigger companies, they're looking for products that can either prevent or stimulate muscle, mass I mean, because if you get a body weight loss of other than obese tissue, then it might be bad in the long run. So.
And they have also been associated with certain side effects. If you could tell us more about this.
Our molecule?
the GLP-1 analogs.
Yeah, so GLP-1 analogs, GLP-1 is a glucagon-like peptide, it's called. It's a hormone that is secreted from cells in the lower gastrointestinal tract. And it has an effect on the gastrointestinal tract. It affects your appetite. So that's why you actually lose weight, because you stop eating. So next to a plaster for the mouth, it's actually quite a good and effective way. But it also has an effect on making you throw up or vomit or have diarrhea. So those are the main effects of those molecules. Can be, I think, maintained by gradual dose escalation and monitoring the dose according to your side effects. But I have heard that it can be quite dramatic in the beginning, at least. But
Yeah.
so completely different from what we see.
Yes, and if we move over to your research and SEN D001, it has shown to increase insulin secretion. Could you elaborate on the magnitude of this effect?
Yes, so we did a 1-month study in obese people with diabetes. It was kind of the first chronic study, so we didn't dare exploring higher doses. So we chose a dose that was shown to be effective in another similar population, so also overweight but without diabetes, and there was no effect. So we gave these people our 4 milligram tablet twice daily for 4 months. And then we gave them an oral glucose tolerance test. So you drink a glass of sugar liquid, and then you measure how much insulin do you, because if you get glucose into your bloodstream, then you will secrete insulin, because glucose needs to go into the liver or the muscles via insulin. And there we saw quite a good effect, but not as much. I mean, we did also see an effect then on the glucose, but not a very big effect. But it was statistically significant better than placebo, so I know that it's right. But we believe we need to go up in higher doses and maybe treat for a longer period of time before we can get clinically. So this is proof of principle, right? But to actually get a drug on the market or to get somebody to buy it, you need a clinically meaningful effect. So this was an effect, but it was less than what we need in the clinic. So our next step, what we're preparing now, is to explore, can we go up in higher doses? Is it tolerated? I mean, I don't think they will throw up or vomit, but they might have, temperature increase that is intolerable. Then we have to stop. But I think this molecule seemed to be quite safe, and it has a short-acting profile, so we can easily monitor it. So that would be this, and then the duration period. So we've seen a small effect on the glucose insulin. We didn't see anything on body weight in this study. And then we saw, and this was surprising, we didn't expect that. We took out blood samples to measure for some markers for cardiovascular safety, because that's really the trigger. Also has been problematic for some compounds before. You don't want to, increase. I mean, you don't want to regulate glucose, but increase the risk of dying, right? So there's been a focus on that. So we measured this biomarker for heart failure and saw that it was like dramatically decreased after just 1 month on this low dose. So even though I'm really focused on the glucose and obesity thing, but we talked about it the other day and said, hey, this might even actually be a cardiovascular treatment before everything else. And it makes sense scientifically and mechanistically that there is this effect. So this is something we hope to explore further and, of course, repeat. And it might even be a standalone treatment for heart failure. Let's see.
And maybe one last question about the increased body temperature.
Yes.
Do you see any risk in this, or is it possible to combine with another pharmaceutical to lower the temperature increase?
So for these molecules that block this chili receptor that I call it, the main side effect has been temperature increase, and some of them have had up to high fever. And for those, there was discussion about combining with something else. But when I started this project and looked for a new compound, I did not look for those who had a high effect on temperature. It's not doable if you have, I mean, if you are obese and have diabetes, you most likely have a lot of other problems in your body. You don't want to push that, right? So I looked for a molecule that had a small effect on temperature. And in healthy volunteers for our molecule, we see a dose-dependent, small but dose-dependent increase on the first day. And after 2 weeks, it's actually the mean body temperature is the same. So it seems to vanish or fade out. But there is actually a small effect that corresponds to 10-minute spiking exercise. So if anything, I hope this to be exercise in a pill. And then temperature increase may be a good thing that may help you stimulate your energy expenditure. You know, when you talk about body weight, it's what comes in, so your appetite, but it also what you burn. And if you have both, and that's actually also something that where we might distinguish ourselves from the GLP-1 analogs, because they only inhibit appetite. They don't increase energy expenditure. And I do expect that we will have an increased energy expenditure, of course, depending on how high can we go in dose. So from being a side effect that everybody has been afraid of, I think it will maybe turn around and be our friend in helping maintaining or reducing body weight. So I'm not so afraid of it. But what we have seen, and this is actually interesting, the effect that we have seen in healthy volunteers has not been repeated in diabetes, persons with diabetes, in that they seem to have a less response on temperature, meaning that there is maybe an improved tolerance for this molecule. But we'll see, like in the next study that we hope to start here during the summer, we will try to see how far can we go up. And then of course we will look out for when, I mean, you don't want them to have steam coming out of the ears or anything else. But you know, if you can control body temperature and energy expenditure, it might be in your favor, right? So exercising a pill could be good, I think, for me. And
maybe time is up, but you're stepping down as CEO and is the new proposed chairman of the board. A short comment about that.
Yeah, the short comment is that we will comment on that tomorrow after the AGM when it's, you know, when the decision is made, and I hope it will be like that, but there will be more news about that tomorrow. So Pila Pharma is now 10 years of age, and so I'll now go. I mean, I can also say that I'll be in the company and I'll keep working in the company as working chairman, but I'll be active as chairman for the next 10 years, maybe, or something. So
Super.
in a close collaboration, of course, with the new CEO.
Thank you very much, Dorte, and good luck going ahead.